All right, everyone, you're listening to our special programming, Member Showcase, the unbelievable members of the Business Forum Group. And now we have an opportunity to have a conversation with another very good friend of mine. We have been working together on radio for probably 5 years in different at different times and in different ways. And she is also one of the very best at what she does in South Florida. And we're talking about Giselle Breto with Best Practices title. Giselle, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Pete. Thank you for asking. How are you doing?
I'm doing phenomenal. This has been almost 7 weeks of this new world, and it seems like 7 years sometimes. But
yes.
I think that yes, this has been very, very challenging. But at the same time, we are now have been and can continue to bring out the best in ourselves through all of this. First of all, how are you and your family doing?
Thankfully, we're all doing great. As most parents of younger school-age children, managing virtual schooling and running a business is interesting. But we thankfully, and more importantly, I should start with saying we're healthy and we're safe. And but definitely there are some challenges with that. But thankfully, we're fine. Thank you for asking.
That's Giselle, for the benefit of a lot of new listeners that have been joining us in the last few weeks and are with us today, share with us a little bit about Best Practices title.
Sounds great. We do real estate closings, title insurance for property owners in the state of Florida. So more specifically, we handle closings, residential and commercial, or any kind of real property in the entire state of Florida, purchases, refinances, acquisitions, whatever that anything that relates to real estate purchases.
So how, in the midst of all of this, which is a time that we've never experienced before, we've been through different things, 9/11, the Great Recession, back in the day, Hurricane Andrew, on and on and on. How have you been engaging with your clients, and how are you doing business, which is an important question.
So, yeah. Well, unlike those other times where there were challenges in the economy and some directly affected real estate, this time around, if you will, our industry has still been considered essential. So we've been fortunate enough to still be able to do business. And I don't want to say as usual, because certainly that's not as usual. But banks are lending and closings are still happening. We have implemented all kinds of, protocols to keep safe. But, what's interesting is that even though our business has always been very paper intensive, we as Best Practices have been running on a paperless system since 2008. So we've been able to transition to this new remote closing relatively easily. In addition to that, earlier this year, and the timing could not have been better, legislation was passed allowing Florida to join other states in doing remote online notarization. And although we were sort of forced into segueing into that a lot sooner than most were ready for. And when I say most, I mean the lenders, because in the end, we still have to go at the pace that the lenders allow us to with their documents. But that legislation allowed us to sort of fast forward into a more electronic method of doing business. And in the combination of systems that we already had in place and the adjustments that some of our partners have implemented, we've been able to accommodate closings pretty easily. And so we do all kinds of things. We do drive-through closings, which is interesting. Whatever the customer feels the most comfortable with doing, as long as we're doing things correctly, is how we're approaching this.
how would you gauge the activity in your business? Obviously, it's taken a hit, but are you seeing a lot of home buyers pulling back on closings? Are closings being deferred? What's going on there?
So initially, within the last 7 weeks, probably myself and most of our lending partners have been working through what we had existing in the pipeline. So those were contracts that were already in place and were going to get to closing at some point throughout the month of April, so they weren't really affected. As far as new contracts are concerned, I mean, certainly there have been some limitations because, there haven't been as many showings, as many open houses. So folks that had their homes on the market that were not under contract probably have had to hold off. On the flip side, banks are still lending and interest rates are great. And I don't foresee, and, certainly I don't have a crystal ball, and maybe somebody that does mortgages can give you more of an insight on this. But I talk to other professionals in our industry quite often about this and what they think is going to happen. And I think that we're probably going to see rates where they are right now for at least the immediate future. It wouldn't make any sense for the economy for the rates to change. So we do want people to get back into the groove. I know people, as I'm sure you're hearing, are anxious to get back to work to some degree, and which means that people who are looking to refinance or possibly buy will probably hold off maybe another month or two. It's what I suspect. But then they will be eager to get back. Do I think that maybe property values will see some sort of adjustment? Maybe, but I'm hopeful that that's not going to be a drastic adjustment, because again, I think that people are going to be going back into the market. I think the biggest factor is going to be whether or not there's any great job losses, which will affect obviously those with the original intent on buying something, and then obviously they don't have the income now to do so. But if people can get right back to work and they haven't had any great effect on their credit, then I think that we should be able to get right back to business. And that's what I'm hopeful. I'm always a positive person. You know me. So that's what I'm hoping
without a doubt.
Yeah.
That's why it's a lot of fun to get you on the show, because our conversations are always full of energy. And I mean, you're a realist. I mean, you understand when things are tough, and, you make no bones about it. But yet, okay, so we got this situation. What's the solution? How can we move forward? How can we start to create something a lot of times out of nothing, right? Mm-hmm. But keep the ball rolling, keep moving forward. So today we're hearing, even here in Miami-Dade County, they're starting to open things up very, very slowly. Some of the parks. I think that in the coming weeks, there's going to be very gradual reopenings again, little by little. It's not going to come overnight. The real reality of all this is this was a sudden stop. I mean, like just like that, like the lights went off. But turning the lights back on and reopening is going to be like a dimmer switch. You're going to start very faintly, and then little by little by little, it gets brighter and brighter and brighter and opens up. So that's kind of what I see happening right now. And you got to be talking to a lot of your colleagues and saying, so what's going to happen in the real estate industry in the next 6 to 12 months? Because as you just said right now, a lot of folks have been laid off. Unfortunately, they may not get those jobs back, or if they've been furloughed, they may not be working or making money for possibly another several weeks. Okay. So there's a lot of catch up going on here, I think. And that's really the part that's unpredictable. So if we can move forward and get more of this reopened responsibly, which I agree with, I think that the sooner that happens, the better we're going to be, and we can shorten that length of a recovery that could take a lot longer than that. So that's really the key thing. Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think that being responsible and opening up is, I think that being that that's where we are now, that we're talking about the gradual reopening, that as responsible as we need to be in doing that, That's the conversation that we're having now, is starting to make people more hopeful. When we didn't know a few weeks back how long this was going to be and how long this was going to take, people had a different attitude about things. And now that the conversation is, let's start reopening. Yes, we're all in agreement that it needs to be responsible. It needs to be gradual. And some businesses may not happen for some types of businesses right away. When the conversation is that now we're going to start getting back to some normality, then I think that people's outlook and attitude about things are going to be more positive or more hopeful. And you're right. There are going to be folks that are still going to be hurting financially, economically, businesses. But if there could be, especially since we had such a hard stop in the entire world, if there could be a rebound, and we know we could do it because we've made it through other bad times before. If there could ever be a rebound, then we're going to be fine in the end after this. So, and you know what? I think that sometimes these kinds of shakeups bring out some new ways of doing businesses, new ways of looking at things, new ways on how to be prepared for certain emergencies, and so that something good will come out of it, if anything,
I think a lot of really good things are going to come out of it. The way I look at it, the way I feel about it, I think that, and you just said it, it is that before there was a great uncertainty. All you kept hearing was more shutting down and curfews and the mask. When the mask thing became mandatory in public places, 2 weeks ago or give or take, when that started to happen, it's like, oh my God, more and more and more. And it just, you feel like you're being shut down. But now just the conversation shifting to little by little reopening where it's across the board. I mean, except for a handful of states and areas of the country are saying, well, we're going to do it another 2 months or whatever. I think the majority is little by little opening up, assessing, but that shifts because we are a consumer-driven society. And the consumers, if they have the confidence, they're going to spend money, and that's going to get this economy back. If the consumer does not spend the money because they don't have the money, or feel confident that that what they have is going to take them too long, then that's going to hold them back. So this is going to be very interesting to watch in the coming days and weeks. Giselle, for the benefit of the listeners, they're hearing you, they're seeing the type of person you are, the professional that you are. What is the best way for them to get to know you and possibly do business?
So I encourage your listeners to come to any one of our social media platforms, all under Best Practices title. So Instagram, you'll get a feel there for our message, our branding, our business, our staff, obviously our website, bestpracticestitle.com. We'll provide them all kinds of information about our services. You can follow us on Facebook as well, which would be like Instagram. And at any point, they can call my office at 305-662-1600, and all our contact information are on our website as well.
Giselle, thank you so much. My best to you and your family and all your colleagues. Stay safe, and, we'll get to see you real soon, I hope.
I hope so as well. Stay safe as well. Thank you for letting me on the show. Have a wonderful day.
Absolutely. Take care. All right. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.